Hey, what's going on? My name is Elliott, and this is how to apply to an MFA program from someone who should know. Now, as a bit of background, for the past 17 years, I've run a graduate MFA program and been solely responsible for both its recruiting as well as decisions in the application process. So if by chance you're looking in on this video and you too run an MFA program, prepare to set your phasers to stun. These are the top 5 secrets, top 5 pro tips to an effective application ranked in order of importance from 5 to 1. What I'm going to attempt to do is provide you with a window into the application process from the other side. I'm going to attempt to show you how applications are perceived once they are received so that you can get a drop on your competition. Tip number 5, contrary to popular opinion, it's important to realize that your portfolio, while important, is a gateway to the rest of your application. It's simply the first hurdle that unlocks the more important and compelling components of your application. To structure an effective portfolio, above all else, it's critically important to select visually arresting work that is not overly dependent upon description. Drive all decisions in the selection process back to the idea that intelligence, that evidence of IQ can be found directly in the work. So while constructing the portfolio, the most important thing to keep in mind is to select visually arresting work that is not heavily reliant on description. Tip number 4, in most instances, it's the essay that provides critical insight into both the applicant as well as the portfolio. So it's important that the essay follows 2 basic principles. The first principle, and arguably the most important, is that the essay be seen as a form of creative writing with the emphasis on creative. It's important to forego all forms of boilerplate, stock, and trite, both ideas and language. The second critical principle for writing the essay is to make sure that the essay can withstand scan and polysyllabic scanning. We're going to take a closer look at that now. The essay, when complete, must be able to stand out from hundreds of other essays when scanned. Let's take a look at a simulated initial reading of an essay when submitted among hundreds of other applications. In order for the essay to be marked for closer reading, it must hold up to scanning. In that process, the reader quickly focuses on all of the polysyllabic content and citations. This is a time-honored speed reading technique, but as simply as possible, it's as if the reader sees only the long words and the citations, removing all of the connective tissue, removing the prepositions, articles, determiners, and quantifiers. It's more than possible to begin to quickly form a fairly accurate picture of an essay by simply looking at the polysyllabic words and citations. Now, it's important to point out that this initial read then flags the essay as worthy of a closer reading. So my advice is to first focus on creative and compelling writing. I cannot stress this enough, but then to go back and evaluate and tune the essay for polysyllabic scanning. The most important conceptual component of the essay is to primarily understand it as an exercise in creative writing and secondarily as an academic exercise. Understand that the essay, above all else, must be compelling to read. Factor into the essay the polysyllabic scanning techniques we just went over, but emphasize the creativity and the approach to the work as a form of creative writing. As we progress through these tips, they become more important. Tip number 3 is a shockingly overlooked component of the application process in most instances. Do your research. It's critically important, and I can't underscore this enough. It is critically important in the application process to do as comprehensive a research as possible into both the institutions as well as the professors, instructors, and heads of the departments to which you are applying. one of the easiest and most effective ways to improve the quality of your essay and to win the interview process is maybe one of the simplest things possible, and that is to do comprehensive research on the institutions, the professors, and the heads of the department to which you're applying. It is staggeringly simple. There's this thing called the internet. Do as comprehensive a research as possible. Know absolutely everything that you can about the department, the institution, the professors, and the heads of the department, and you'll win the interview. Tip number two. Tip number two is a legitimate backdoor, if you will, into many MFA programs. My advice is to make a connection. And what I mean by this is many of the heads of graduate programs, many of the professors teaching in graduate programs, and many of the adjunct professors during the summertime and in other capacities run workshops, they lecture, and they work with art and design organizations. One of the most effective ways to build a connection, an early connection to a graduate program, and to build a relationship with the people already in place in that program, is to seek out connection, academic, educational, or professional connection with the people in those programs prior to the application process. I can't stress this enough. I would suggest looking for workshops, looking for lectures, and looking for opportunities, possibly in social media without stalking, to make a connection to the individuals in those programs. It's one of the most overlooked components of the application process, and I've placed it at number 2 because it really is a way to make the application stand out. It's also a fabulous way for the candidate to research whether or not that application, whether or not that institution will be a good fit. The number 1 tip, the most important tip after the portfolio has been submitted, after the essay has been written, and as you're invited to an interview, the number 1 tip, the best advice that I can possibly give you, the tip that governs the rest of the 4 points, is to have a point of view. One of the most critical components, one of the most difficult and challenging components of cultivating a rich academic and intellectual environment, a studio, is to find compelling people. And one of the most important components of that equation is for the candidates, for the members of the studio to have a point of view. So I would counsel you from the jump to try to forget about regurgitating, attempting to anticipate what a program wants to hear, what the head of a program, what the proper answers to questions would be. And I would suggest that above all else, have a point of view. Have a point of view both through your portfolio, through your essay, and if you're lucky enough to get an interview in a graduate studio, make sure that you simply are human and that you have an informed point of view, that you have an opinion. The research that you do into the program, the research that you do into the professors, the instructors in the program, will provide you with a starting point for the point of view. So above all else, attempt to avoid answering trite questions with trite answers. And then the other suggestion that I would have that overlaps with the point of view is attempt to turn the tables on the interviewer. When you have an interview in a graduate program, I would suggest that you come with a set of difficult questions. Those difficult questions will signal to your interviewer the seriousness of the approach to your education, and it'll alert the interviewer that you're sentient and intelligent.